America. I always say that when I'm talking to Dr. Michael Oren, so he realizes, though he's in Israel, the former ambassador to the United States from Israel is in the afternoon, and he's warmed up. My voice is terrible this morning, Dr. Oren, because it's before a
Tell me
weekend.
about
I'm
it.
doing
Yeah.
like you did during the war, which is everything.
Yeah.
I want to start with the prime minister yesterday saying that Israel's destroyed 80% of Hezbollah's missiles. That's fabulous news. 20% still a lot, but do you believe him?
I have no reason to doubt it. I have no reason to doubt it. It depends what's left of the 20%. Are they long range? Are they accurate missiles? There's all different types of missiles. But I understood that a very large percentage, maybe even many more than 80% of the accurate missiles and long range missiles have been destroyed. And the fact of the matter is, early last week, we had sirens here for 2 days, and we haven't had a siren since then. So that's saying something.
Now, that is great news. Second question. I was asked yesterday, what did I think about Israel's war? I think they've won it. All they got to do is figure out how to withdraw from Lebanon and Gaza. And I think the Iranians got the message because they're naked and afraid. What's your assessment? Have you won the war, but you've got to figure out how to end it?
Yeah, we're certainly at the end of the beginning, put it that way. It's this way. There was a huge event yesterday. Maybe it went unnoted in the United States, and that is Hezbollah said for the first time that it's willing to discuss a ceasefire without having a prior ceasefire in Gaza. Because before it was just the opposite. Hezbollah would say, well, we won't accept a ceasefire unless Hamas accepts a ceasefire. So they're willing now to detach their ceasefire from the Hamas ceasefire. And the United States is hoping they can build on now a Hezbollah ceasefire to bring about a Hamas ceasefire. But apart from that, we can now see how the war in the north can be won. And it can be won like this. Hezbollah now accords with UN Resolution 1701 of 2006, which calls for Hezbollah to withdraw north of the Litani River. But that's just the beginning. Then you have a force that has to enter southern Lebanon, and it can't be UNIFIL. UNIFIL is completely spineless and toothless. It can't be the Lebanese army because they can't muster any strength whatsoever. A good article about it in the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. And so Israel has to reserve the right of hot pursuit, the right to intercede and intervene in Lebanon again, should there be evidence of Hezbollah trying to reconstitute itself near the Israeli border. I think that's about as best as we're going to get right now. And the rest we leave to the Lebanese because Hezbollah has been very weakened within Lebanon itself, and many people there of different sex, different ethnicities are out for blood.
Dr. Oren, another story that was not much reported caught my eye. The IDF blew up a cavern. It wasn't a tunnel. It was a military base underground. They had to use so much explosives it registered an earthquake. Maybe you felt it. I don't know. Did you feel it?
My daughter did in Lower Galilee. They had an earthquake alert from it. It was that big.
That's a lot of money Hezbollah just flushed and Iran flushed. And then I don't think Americans realize the strategic aspect of the strike on Iran. You want to explain what the IDF did? I mean, we're back to Entebbe-like stuff in the last month.
Yeah, sure. What they did was prove that Iran is utterly vulnerable to any attack, that they have really no air defense, that the Iranian leadership, both military and political, are totally penetrated by Israeli intelligence. We know where everything is. We probably know where everybody is. And that regime is tottering. And I think what we can debate whether Israel could have taken out more targets, whether we should have gotten into the nuclear realm or the oil realm. But the fact of the matter is that this regime is a weak regime, and it is facing tremendous growing internal opposition. And the Israeli opposition humiliated and weakened that regime even further. And you know me, we've said this many times on this program, Hugh, I'm in favor of the Dirty Harry approach to Iran, which is, as you know, go ahead, I won't say the word, go ahead, pull the trigger, make my day.
Make my day.
I would like
now, Dr. Oren, yesterday I did a long podcast with Jamie Weinstein. Maybe you know Jamie, very smart guy, never Trumper from 2015 forward. And I told him, Jamie, you support Israel big time like I do. And, you know, Trump is going to be with Israel. And I think Vice President Harris would be the most anti-Israel president we've ever had. He wouldn't comment on that because it destroys the Never Trumper case. But I don't want you to get involved in American politics. I just want, Jamie said to me that Trump talked to Bibi and he told Bibi to have the war won by the time he takes office. Is that reported in Israel? I have never heard that.
Yeah, it was a headline here yesterday.
Do you
It
believe
was a
it?
headline here yesterday. Uh, He can say what he wants. I think that we hope to have the the war finished if he wins and he is sworn in January. Yes, I hope to have the war over by then. It depends how you define over. I think there's a very clear ending in Lebanon where we it reenact actually this revived 1701, and there's a ceasefire, and Israel can say that it truly won this war. With Gaza, it's much more difficult. Gaza, Hamas is still going to be underground. Hamas may still have hostages. We hope not. We don't know. And so we can say the war is over in the sense that major military operations are over in Gaza, but the struggle against Hamas and the struggle to reconstitute, reconstruct the Gaza Strip, and to get the last of our hostages back, and I'm including the hostages who are no longer with us alive, that may go on even longer.
I've got to ask you about Mohammed Sinwar, and I've got to ask you about Qatar, and I've got to ask you about the rhetoric of Vice President Harris without getting you involved. It is clear to me, Dr. Oren, that the Hamas organization in Gaza is utterly destroyed, but Mohammed Sinwar is still alive. He's got to be gotten. You got to get your 50 alive hostages back, 4 of whom are Americans and alive, plus 50 bodies or 55 bodies. And you've got to get Qatar to expel the remaining remnant of Hamas. And I think for years the United States asked Qatar to keep them there, and I think the United States should turn their mind here and dump them. What about those 3 subjects, and what about, does Kamala Harris's rhetoric annoy you, bother you, alarm you?
Okay, wow. Okay, a lot of questions. Rapid fire. We can keep on destroying and knocking off, eliminating, however you want to phrase it, Hamas leaderships. There will be other leaders going to take their place. They actually may be more radical than Sinwar. They may have to prove themselves that they are more Hamas than the previous Hamas guy. We don't know. Our hope is that the leadership of Hamas will fragment and will be able to make deals with individual commanders or leaders in certain areas for the release of hostages. Because it's very difficult to conduct negotiations with Hamas generally, but now it's even more difficult because you really don't know who's in charge and who's calling the shots there. I don't think anybody does. So yes, that struggle has to go on. With Qatar, I want to tear the hair out, Hugh. I don't understand why the United States is not pulling a full court press on Qatar and saying if you don't,
we've always asked Qatar to keep the Hamas people there,
Hamas,
haven't we?
That's it. We're finished. We're pulling our base out of there. The United States doesn't even pay for that base. It's an Air Force base. We're pulling the base out of there. We're closing all the Qatari branches in the United States. We're going to clamp down on you. That's it. We're going to declare you a terror supporting state because basically that's what they are. And I don't understand. No one actually comes out and does it. Certainly not in this administration. Kamala Harris's remarks are disconcerting. Her failure to condemn that student who accused Israel of genocide, and what I call the string of buts. The buts disturb me. She'll say that she supports Israel's right to exist, certainly Israel's right to defend itself, but there'll be a cause and there's a but. But how Israel defends itself is important. But the Palestinians must have a state. Palestinians must have dignity and security. And but the war must end with a ceasefire in Gaza. That's a lot of buts, and it's not just the buts, it's not just the qualification. It's the nature of the buts. I think all 3 of those are pretty much unattainable right now. So that is a source of concern for me. It is.
All right, my very last question, Dr. Oren, and you've been very generous with your time, is that if Donald Trump wins, do you expect he will be in Israel quickly, and do you expect full-throated support from him?
I expect extensive support from him. I think Donald Trump, to the degree that I know him or I know his past, he is very transactional. He wants to cut deals, and I think that Israel should be open to deals that he wants to cut. I mean, I was an advisor, Hugh, to the Trump peace plan, and I thought it was the best peace plan I'd ever seen, and I've been involved in the process for about 30 years. It was the closest reflection of our actual reality. Most of these peace plans have no connection to our reality whatsoever. But it was a very controversial peace plan here because it basically had a 2-state formula in it. Not the 2 states formula of, say, the Obama and Clinton plan, but it's still a 2-state formula. So the Israeli extreme right rejected it. I think we have to be open to the suggestions of Donald Trump. He made a very earnest effort to try to negotiate a peace between us and the Palestinians. And I think we should take it seriously.
Okay, I lied. I had a Washington Post column yesterday I've got to ask you about because of what happened in Edit. I said the West right now, the new West, includes Israel and the UAE and Poland and a bunch of other countries. And along the way, someone said the UAE is not part of the West. I said the UAE did the Abraham Accord. They're not a democracy, but they're part of the West. Do you agree with me on that?
I think that they are West-like. Put it this way. They're West-like. I think one of the definitions of the West would be type of democracy. It would be a certain type of spectrum of rights that are very basic to Western countries. And I don't know if that actually exists in the UAE the way it exists, say, in your state. If you're coming from California or New York, it's going to be different. But certainly there are people who in UAE identifies with the West and is standing by the West in battles that are absolutely faithful for our civilization, including the current battle, because that's what this war is really about.
The point.
It's about a war between the West and its opposite. And its opposite.
That's the point I was making. I mean, China, Russia, Iran, they're the bad guys. They got North Korea in there. They've got a bunch of proxies. And UAE is with Israel and the Americans on that battle whenever we have leadership. Okay, last question. Yesterday I said for the next 2 months, Bibi is the leader of the West. And I don't care if you're a lefty Israeli who hates him or if you're a left-wing Democrat who hates him or anyone who hates him. For the next 2 months, Joe Biden is infirm, and the only guy with fortitude, I won't use a crude term, is Bibi. You agree with that?
I agree that Israel generally is standing up for the West. That's what this war has been about. It's about Israel standing up for the West. And it's a statistic that I've often given you, and I'm going to give it one more time. 365,000 reservists called up, leaving their homes, leaving their families, their jobs, and going to fight for their country would be equivalent to about 20 million Americans, Hugh. That's 4 million Americans more than fought in all World War II. And you got to think to yourself, okay, who in Belgium is willing to pick up a gun and go and fight for Belgium? Who in Spain is going to pick up a gun and fight for Spain? This is the only Western democracy that I know that to this extent is willing to defend itself against an enemy that vitiates everything we hold dear.
Dr. Michael Oren, you've been generous with your time. Keep coming back. I appreciate it very much, Mr. Ambassador. You are a voice of clarity in very confused times. Thank you.